Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Talking Ted Lasso. Oh, it does feel daunting, Janine, because we're getting
Yeah.
a little bit to the end of this particular stint of Talking Ted Lasso. Season 3 has now begun. We don't have a season 4 yet, although it
No.
is
In the
announced.
works.
It is in the works. We will be returning with Talking Ted Lasso when season 4 does come out, but that will not be before we finish season 3, will it?
Yes.
So there will be time to cut in a different show into Morgan Hasn't Seen It TV. Or maybe it won't even be Morgan Hasn't Seen TV. We will see what that is, won't we? But we digress with that because Talking Ted Lasso is back. Season 3 has begun. And there's a lot of craziness going on. We're back in the Premier League now with Richmond. People are in different stages of their mentalities within AFC Richmond. And it's nice to be back. It doesn't feel like we've been away, but the structure of a television show, we've had that enormous emotional peak of the finale of season 2, and it does now feel like everything's quietened back down a bit. Things are still going on, obviously, but that is the nature of the opening of a season of television. I think it is a reintroduction of sorts. It is a new start of sorts. It's obviously a new season for Richmond, and it's interesting as to where a few of the people are in their own minds. I think Ted is Ted. Ted, I think, will always be Ted. But there's a few things going on in these first 2 episodes of season 3. I would say, namely with Roy, most out of anybody. But I don't know. What do you think about season 3? Should I be looking forward to the rest of season 3? Is it better than 1 and 2? Is it a downturn from 1 and 2?
I mean, from what I remember, it is a bit of a downturn in terms of just kind of like characters maybe not ending up where I had hoped they would by the end of things. It's fine. It's not bad. It's not miserable. It's not the end of Game of Thrones. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they just veered totally in a different direction. But they do some things that tie up, I think, nicely for characters. Obviously their stories can continue, but kind of just wrap it up pretty cleanly, but not in the way I kind of wanted it to go. So not disappointing, just kind of like, I feel like it would have maybe worked better this way. So from what I remember, the kind of ending wasn't wholly satisfying, but still very enjoyable and kind of what the show does best. So, from what I recall, but I think these first early episodes are really interesting to kind of see Nate and the choice he makes and kind of how Ted handles it and that kind of thing, and Ted's handling of it affecting Nate as well, kind of thing. That's
definitely a massive part of this first episode that we're getting into today. It's called Smells Like Mean Spirit because, Nate's feeling particularly mean, isn't he? Oh,
yes, he,
I'm going to be horrible to people.
And he has somebody encouraging that meanness because it's like every time he would say something cruel, he would get kind of a judgmental glare from Beard, and then he would rein it in. But now he has Rupert encouraging all of the nasty things he says and the horrible thoughts he has about people. And so he plays into that in this episode, which is just kind of gross. But
you wonder if Rupert actually thinks Nate is kind of any good as a football brain, or is he just a weak-minded person who Rupert knows he can so heavily influence, and basically Rupert's the manager of West Ham as well as the owner? I feel like that's Rupert's game. really.
And I mean, and also it's just like him taking away, not just a beloved person, but also a tactical mind from Rebecca. So,
Yeah,
motivations, no matter how good or bad Nate was, I think had, him seeing value in Nate, uh, mostly comes out of being able to get one over on Rebecca just because he can
yeah,
kind of thing. And
yeah,
he'll prove, and that'll kind of reveal itself a little bit in terms of just like that manipulation you talked about. So those things will kind of pop up in terms of Rupert and his dynamics with Nate going forward. So you're kind
yeah.
of on the nose with how you're kind of viewing this dynamic.
Because I can see it. It's something that kind of seems to happen in the real world of football as
Yeah.
well. Owners try and impart themselves too much on the actual team and the football
Mhm.
itself, rather than, I suppose this is the case in
Yeah.
any
The
sport, really, isn't it?
strategists, yeah, when the kind of
Yeah,
backing people kind of try to meddle with the people who are
yeah.
actually kind of, putting together the plays and the team and yeah.
Because, as much as we don't like Nate at the moment, obviously, he is undoubtedly he knows what he's talking about in
Yeah.
tactical terms. He is a good football brain, but it's if Rupert is truly seeing that, or he's just acknowledging that, but also you're weak-minded, I can influence you, or is
Yeah.
he actually listening to the fact that Nate does kind of know what he's talking about, no matter what we think about him?
Yeah.
Um,
Or it could
this
be all 3. Yeah, that he
it
can
could
get,
be all three. This
it
will
could be a
help West
nice
Ham.
big it'll help him, having that tactical brain. It's somebody he can be is malleable, he can kind of manipulate and mess with and will do whatever he says with just a little encouragement. And it's, to get one over on Rebecca. So he can
Yeah.
have all 3. So a good decision on his part. He's probably feeling very successful about that. So
Yes, because we see quite a bit of it, obviously, in this first episode, and West Ham itself is presented as a pretty gloomy-looking place. I find
yeah.
it weird that they chose West Ham to be this team. Maybe for production reasons, it was kind of the
Yeah,
easiest London club to go
that
for, easiest
access
big
to
London
and
club to go
yeah,
for. Yeah, because they have to film there and use all the branding and all the licensing and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
why West Ham would agree to be portrayed as literally the villains of the show?
Right, it's like,
I'm
they
not
make it look
sure.
like Mustafar or something.
They actually kind of do. And I find it weird that it is West Ham, because West Ham are kind of, unless
The
you
least
support
threatening team.
specific, yeah, unless you support specific clubs around London, West Ham are a very kind of inoffensive team.
Okay.
They're just,
There.
not to do discredit to West Ham, but they're kind of just there, and
Okay.
yeah, like everybody's like, oh yeah, West Ham. I don't mind West Ham. That's kind of everybody's
Indifference.
reaction, unless you support Millwall or like Spurs or something like that. That's everybody's reaction to West Ham.
Okay,
But they are a big London club,
okay.
um, but not as, I suppose, one that doesn't invoke as much hatred, I suppose, as an Arsenal or a Chelsea
Mm,
or even a Spurs, perhaps.
yeah,
Um, if they were to do that, it's odd.
interesting.
Um, but it's a great club. West Ham's a great club. I used to like watching West Ham quite a bit. They've done reasonably well in recent years as well. They even won a trophy a couple of years ago,
Okay.
which is very unusual for a club like West Ham. So
Yeah,
they did very well at doing that. But I do find it odd that the villain is West Ham, even though the villain's obviously Rupert,
yeah,
and Nate at this point. But I find it odd that they're at West Ham. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because
yeah,
Richmond is our focus. Richmond aren't obviously even a real team. Richmond are our focus, and the pettiness of Nate in this
yeah,
first episode as well, in these interviews he's giving, the press conference that he's giving prior to the season beginning, because all the journalists, all the reporters, all the news outlets, they predicted Richmond in dead last, dead bottom.
Yeah.
Absolutely everybody doesn't give them a single chance of staying up in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Which, I feel like they should know better at this point. But maybe it's only been a couple of years of Ted, and people still don't know.
Yeah.
Who Ted is properly in the wider journalistic world.
Yeah.
But I find it horribly hilarious that Nate comes out with, well, everybody predicts them as 20th because there's no 21st.
And Rupert laughs.
Shut up, Nate. I'll slap you in the face.
Yes, and Rupert very much encourages this type of thinking and talking. So when that does kind of come up as a question in the press conference, he is very easy to say. He kind of gives a look to Rupert, and Rupert nods, and so he does say that line again to the press, that like, oh yeah, it's only because there's no 21st, that they can't be that dead last place. So,
but this is what Ted likes, this sort of underdog attitude, or everybody, putting him down, everybody not thinking they're going to do anything, is exactly what Ted Lasso himself thrives off. Because I think if they were to expect Ted to do well, he wouldn't do as well as he would.
Yeah.
If expected him to not do well. It's that kind of odd reverse mentality that I think Ted does have. He needs to be the underdog. If he is the top dog, or the overdog, as they even refer to it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, why is there no such thing as an overdog? Yeah, but I think he handles these types of situations. Yeah, I think he handles these situations very much like Rebecca's mom, like at the funeral, and her mentality, because she makes it clear, I'm always kind to Rupert because he wants to get a rise out of me. He wants to get a rise out of you. So people like that want that from you. So don't give it to them. So when Ted is kind of faced with these types of confrontations, it's not his first instinct to kind of fight back. It's his first instinct to kind of kill him with kindness. And it works on Nate in particular, because when he's complimenting Nate and says nice things about him, Nate wants the attention of, getting a rise out of Ted. And when he doesn't, it drives him nuts, which is kind of what was the big kind of climax of their kind of parting ways. But it's really interesting how the team, they're obviously feeling the stress of everyone kind of doubting them, and they're feeling down, and they're all confused. So Ted takes them to the sewers. His son was visiting. We see that kind of right. We see that at the beginning of this episode. He's packing his son up to to go back home. He's been with him for 6 weeks. And his son had the idea to go and tour these sewers because he had seen it and it scared him. And so to face his fears, he was like, I want to learn about the sewers and know that that's just pretend and there's not really a clown down here. So when he sees the team all kind of stressed out.
Pennywise lives everywhere.
Yes, but as far as his son knows, because I think he said his son ended up accidentally watching it next to the person sitting next to him on the plane who was watching it. So
that's a good point, actually. I didn't even think about that. That is true. But you think about some of the movies, if you go on long haul flights and things like that, have full entertainment systems on them. Some of the movies, like anybody could be sat next to you, a toddler could be sat next to you, and you're perfectly well allowed to watch any
crazy movie.
Kind of,
and the person next to you just kind of watching. It reminds me of Barry Jenkins, the director. He did a whole, I think, thread where he was sitting next to somebody on a plane, and I think they were watching some rom-com. They were watching Sleepless in Seattle or You've Got Mail or something, and he was watching it obviously without the sound, and he was like doing a live thread about like the plot and like what he thought was happening based off of watching it off the person screen next to him. So yeah, like anybody could literally be watching a whole ass movie with you on a plane, no matter who they are. So
But
yeah,
I've seen very graphic movies been available to watch on a plane, and if you
yeah.
are sat next to a child, is that really best practice to be
Exactly.
watching something like
Yes.
that?
You
It
would
like,
think
if
it
you
would
do
be
want to watch something like that, absolutely fine, obviously.
yeah, do what you want, but kind of read the area that you're in. Yeah,
Read
because you'd
the
think it would
area.
just be a selection of like family friendly films. So yes, his son ended up, I guess, watching it secondhand off of somebody's screen who was sitting next to him when he was on the plane flying there to see Ted. So it was his son's idea to face his fears and go down to the sewer and do this whole kind of actual tour where you learn about the sewer system.
Yeah.
And so he thought that would be a good field trip for the team. They're super, out of focus and they're freaking out about, all these opinions about them. So, Ted's kind of thought process behind this was like facing your fears and, kind of, going into these things head first and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the lesson that they were trying to, he was trying to impart on them. But as all of this kind of criticism is looming, Nate's doing this press conference, pictures of them coming out of the sewer surface. People start taking pictures of them and putting them online. So it's like, the shit team is coming out of the sewers, of course, because they're
Yeah.
shit, kind of thing.
Yeah. It's
Um,
very obvious. It's low-hanging fruit.
yes. So on top of all of that, and then Nate kind of just throwing these barbs at the press conference. And Rebecca, she's watching the press conference with Higgins and kind of sees everybody laughing at them, making fun of them. And so when Ted goes there, like it's a very interesting conversation that she kind of yells at him. She's like, Rupert is laughing at us. Everyone is laughing at us. What are you going to do about it, Ted? Like, Rupert's laughing
Yeah.
at me. Like and like, I feel like when she says, Rupert's laughing at me, like she says that he's laughing at us. Everyone's making fun of us. Rupert's laughing at me. She's talking to Ted as as her friend, not as, his boss in that moment.
She is, but she also has reverted to this caring about what Rupert thinks mentality again,
Yes, we
which I
see
thought we were
that.
kind of getting over.
Yes, and we see that kind of throughout both of these episodes until kind of the very end where she kind of gets back into her badass Rebecca
Yeah.
mode. But we see her very much kind of feeling the criticism of Rupert and having that really affect her. So it was just a very interesting kind of her imploring Ted, almost yelling at him to do something and not, take this, rolling over kind of thing. And, when she says that last bit, he's making fun of me, I think Ted, who normally would say anything, because I think she asked him, like, are you going to say anything about Nate's comments? And he's like, no, I wasn't going to say anything. And so
Yeah.
then when she kind of implores him to say something, do something about it, you know, she's almost kind of, breaking that boundary of her talking about a coach defending his team and more like, are you going to defend your friends and the people you care
Yeah.
about from this commentary? And I think how she says it, Tim, and expresses that, that's how I read it. And so I feel like that's what made Ted kind of break his own kind of rule and address it, but address it in a very Ted way.
Yes,
Um
a very Ted way, a very clever way, a completely
yeah.
deflective way.
Yes, and even, she was kind of worried and nervous when he was kind of going on this kind of thing that he was doing because he's basically doing like an 8 mile
Mm,
be rabbit thing where he's
yeah.
basically, addressing all of the things that people would make fun of him for, so that, Nate really has no ammunition. So he's taking all his ammunition away. And he's doing it in this very light, goofy Ted way. And he's also, he engages the reporters and is friendly with them. He's addressing them, on a personal basis, like the new independent reporter,
Yes.
he kind of
Not strength
congratulates him.
crazy independent.
Yes, Marcus, the independent. And like one of the reporters, he notices she dyed her hair because she's going through a breakup and they kind of have a little moment. So him really
Yeah.
just being kind to people and remembering people and having a moment with them kind of erases all of the negative commentary. And Rebecca kind of is hesitant to kind of get behind how he's handling this. And then she sees a text from Keeley saying, good job letting Ted be Ted. So
Yeah.
I like that, she's hesitant, but then she realizes, it's kind of smart the way he's handling this. And we see Nate watching this, and he's getting pissed off because it's taking away all his kind of thunder. And, he's so obsessed with looking online to see what people are saying. And people are kind of calling him a wanker now and talking about
Yes.
how great, what a class act Ted is. And so he's not liking any of that. So yeah, Ted does a really great spin on all the negative commentary that's happening in part to Nate. So I really kind of like that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, this entire first episode is all before any football is played of that season as well.
Yeah.
So it's all real kind of prep. It's the final sort of week before. And it is these final little kind of mind games you have to play with the press.
Yeah.
To either get them on your side or try and slowly manipulate some sort of
Yeah.
situation to gain some sort of public advantage,
Yeah.
whatever it may be. And Ted does do a really good job
Yeah.
at bringing the positivity around him and Richmond
Yeah.
after so much negativity in the preceding weeks,
Yeah.
which has just been, they're gonna do terribly. Are they even going to win any game at all in this kind of
Yeah.
extreme, situation?
Yeah.
But something else that is a big part of this first episode is Keeley and Roy. We see Keeley
Yeah.
at her new PR
PR.
company.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She's incredibly busy, concerningly busy, breaks down in tears as soon as her office
Rebecca.
door is shut and Rebecca comes in.
Yeah. So she schedules lunch with Rebecca in her office. She's kind of filling her in, telling her what's going on. And then, it does reveal to her that she actually has to schedule time at her desk to cry because she's so busy and it's so stressful. And then she kind of sees her coworkers, and they're all very kind of serious business people that the backers kind of put in place to help her. So it's not like people she hired or people that kind of are like-minded like her, kind of a fun, free spirit. They're very kind of serious business people and kind of boring, particularly her CFO, who's the in charge of the finances, and she's kind of just on her case and very serious. And Keeley wants to plan for all of them to go out for drinks, and she's just like, no, I don't do that, and kind of stodgy and things. So yeah, she's incredibly.
Why are we spending all this money on flowers? Because I want the place to look nice.
Nice and smell nice every week. $200 on flowers. That's terrible. £200 on flowers. That's awful. Yeah. So yeah. So I like seeing kind of the, Rebecca come in there and be a support to her, and because she was her mentor. And so kind of, seeing that relationship still kind of be fostering, and her getting to see her in her element, and Keeley being able to be vulnerable and not feeling like she has to impress Rebecca in any kind of way. I've loved their friendship and development throughout, these seasons. So it's nice to see that that's still kind of going strong despite her kind of being so busy. But yeah, then ultimately she kind of says, I think Rebecca offers to have dinner with her that night. And she's like, no, I'm meeting up with Roy. We're going to have the talk with his niece. And so we're kind of like talk, like, so we're kind of unsure what that means. Then we ultimately cut to that scene, and the niece is like eating down a whole big bowl of ice cream, and she's like, okay, what's up with this? Like, either I did something really good or you both did something really bad for you to be giving me all this ice cream. And so they're kind of like, we have something to tell you. And they both say different things. Keeley says, we're taking a break, and Roy says, we broke up. And so Keeley's kind of surprised.
Which is significant. It's a significant difference.
Yes. So the fact, when we ended with them, it was like he wanted her to go on this big lavish vacation with him for 6 weeks to, just relax and have time together before she kind of does this big push into her big firm. But she said, no, she's already started. She can't leave it. Sorry, you go. We're not breaking up. You go on the trip. I'm going to be working, kind of thing. So that's where we left them, kind of hopeful that, they would work it out. But ultimately,
hopeful, definitely. But
yes.
I mean, this is Roy's mentality, and I don't necessarily disagree with him. He is kind of all or nothing as a person, isn't
Yeah,
he?
he's
He's
like, "You're
either
gonna be
all in
busy."
and will cope and will make time and will make everything work, or if you don't want that, then there's no point.
Yeah, if you have no time
We
for
don't
me
have to do
anyway.
anything. Like,
Yeah, I
that's
don't
okay, but we're not doing this bitty thing that
Yes, I'm not
you
going to
might
be
want to do.
fighting for scraps of your time. You're gonna be busy, and I want you to be busy. Like, I'm happy for you. I wanna see you thrive without having to worry about me in the middle of all of that. So, I'm giving you this freedom to spread your wings and do this great opportunity you have without me kind of getting in the way or you feeling obligated to me, when you're so busy. So you know he's doing it for the right reasons. You know he's doing it because he cares about her and he wants to see her succeed, but it still
Yeah.
sucks because they're great. Like even his niece is like, "What? Why?" Like, so they kind of explain that they're just really busy, and also he's kind of had to take over more coaching duties with Nate gone as well. So
Yeah.
they're both going to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
incredibly busy. So, on paper it makes sense, but obviously they're great together. So it's a real bummer to see that they've actually parted ways. And then even when he's kind of alone in the car with his niece, she's very much like, You made a really stupid decision, Uncle." Kind of thing. So yeah, so and we get the sense there's still feelings there. He obviously didn't want to do it. That she had no idea. That Keeley had no idea that he kind of was thinking that it was an official breakup. So the fact that they're not on the same page with it is just kind of strange and upsetting as well. So yeah, kind of
Yeah.
big bombshell reveal in this first episode that our couple that we've loved is no longer together.
It really is. I hope it can be worked out to some degree. I
Yeah.
really do. Much like I hope kind of Sam and Rebecca can be worked out as well. Not that you get anything of those two in these two
Yeah,
episodes at all.
no. Yeah, like, I
Um,
will say, like, and I don't know that we get much more. I think there's maybe a little bit of things that happen with Sam's restaurant. He starts opening his
okay.
restaurant, and I think the chef he hires is, like, a cute black girl, and so she kinda has a thing for
Okay.
Sam. So I think that maybe plays into it a little bit, but then I think it does get a little bit abandoned, if I remember correctly. So,
That's a
you know
shame. It's a shame.
yes, it
Like, obviously, there's a fourth season, so we don't
Ye
know.
so,
The
yeah, if
show
that was
hasn't
kind of the final
ended.
time. So I don't even remember, like, what happens with him and the black girl, like, because 'cause it's been a while, but, yeah, I think it's a storyline that we kind of maybe dabble in one more time before kind of this show ends,
Okay.
kind of thing, if I
Hmm.
remember right. But,
Interesting.
yeah, so, yeah, we don't really get any of that, but, yeah, our kind of big couple that we really care about just not together, so that's kind of
No.
a big bummer.
It is, and those two situations that we've talked about are really the focus of that first episode.
Yeah.
There's not much else focused on. There's not
No,
much
I
else
mean,
really going on.
yeah, I mean, we open with Ted, and I think the show kind of tries to subvert our what is actually happening. What we think is happening because we just kind of like are on Ted in an airport. We hear about flight to Kansas, and we're like, is he going back to
Yes.
Kansas? Like, what's going on? He looks down at his phone. It's a message from his wife saying, "Hey, when you getting here, I love you," kind of thing, and we're like,
Yeah.
I love you. And then we pan out and realize, oh, it's his son. His son has been visiting him for 6 weeks. And, he hands the phone to his son. Oh, your mom sent you a message. And it's him sending his son back to Kansas, not him going to Kansas, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then we see kind of the difficulty of him going home and like breaking down the fort and cleaning up the Legos and he's talking to Dr. Sharon and kind of just, she's checking in, I know your son's gone, I just want to check and make sure you're okay. And he's like, you know, that's a kind of a big question. I don't know how I'm feeling right now and that kind of thing. And we see this little replica of a Lego stadium that his son made, and Nate is kind of like
Yes.
off in the back
Yes.
rafters. Everyone else is like in a nice little line. He made like all our kind of little main characters, and then Nate is kind of off in the bleachers. But his son sees this and he's like, "Why is Nate back there?" And he's like, "Oh, well, he's not part of the team anymore." And he's like, "Well, but you're still
Yeah.
friends, right?" And Ted hesitates
Maybe not.
and
Maybe
then
not.
says, "Oh, son, yeah, you're right. We're still friends. I'll put him back." And so he puts Nate right next to him. So that's kind of like a weird, like, oh, kind of thing. But
It, it,
yeah,
it's it's very weird. I mean, imagine if Nate saw that, he would be. totally swayed again and
Right.
come crawling back. I think that's what I
Exactly.
think ultimately I want to see. Now, I don't know how season 3 concludes for
Closes out
Nate.
that
I,
story.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't know how it concludes for Nate. I don't know if it continues on. I really have absolutely no concept whatsoever. But I want to see Nate come crawling back and he be denied. That's what I want to see happen, because I just think you can't be like that. You can't be like Nate was at the end of last season.
Yeah. So
And
full of
I mean,
bitterness over what? Like, yeah.
like that is a straight, clean cut. There's
Yeah.
no getting back over that other side. I don't care what you do. I don't care how much you grovel. I don't care how much you fail at West Ham. If you do fail at West Ham, maybe he's very successful. I genuinely don't know, obviously.
Yeah.
But you cannot come and repair anything. Maybe this is my Roy Kent all or nothing attitude coming out again. But I don't think Roy's gonna want him back. I don't think Beard's gonna want any sort of
Yeah,
relationship
but
back.
when has Ted ever kind of taken their opinions to account when it comes to Nate, kind of thing.
I
So
mean, it's a fair point, because Ted is not Ted is a second chance kind of person, isn't he?
yes.
Obviously, he's a massive
Yes.
second chance. He's probably a fifth, sixth chance kind of person.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, very curious to see, you to see how that all ends up playing out, and your opinions as the episodes kind of come if you can kind of see where it might
Yeah,
go. But yeah,
maybe,
and then,
maybe.
I like kind of we get um Dr. Sharon kind of changing up her style of therapy with Ted. Like, he needs to feel this personal relationship. So
Yeah,
it's kind of, implied that like part of their therapy is that he's allowed to ask her some personal questions to get to know
yeah.
her better. So at the end of kind of her talking him down from his kind of difficult moment of sending his son home, um he asks if he can ask her a few questions. So he starts asking her a couple personal questions, and he asks her if she's dating anyone, and she's like, no comment, kind of thing. And then when they end the call, we see her kind of go, she's like in her robe, and she walks into her room, and she's got this cute, like, white boy in her bed. And so we're like, okay, Dr. Sharon, nice.
Like,
Um,
clearly much younger than her as well.
yes, yes. So we love to see it. I'm like, okay, Dr.
Mm,
Sharon. And then again, just the last little bit of kind of what is also maybe going to affect Ted is that it's implied that his wife is seeing somebody.
it is.
We got a little bit of that with the text exchange with him and her at the finale of 2. And then his son, he calls his son and he has this like cool infinity gauntlet. And he's like, where'd you get that? Oh, mom's friend, such and such gave it to me.
Yeah.
And so, just implying that, okay, there's a guy in the picture, obviously. And so now that's going to be
Buying
something that
my son's favour, are you,
exactly.
random man?
Yeah. So, yeah. So that's gonna be something that he's maybe gonna be struggling with this season. So, yeah, that's what we get in that first
As he
episode.
should be, as is his right to struggle with that, as is
Yeah.
perfectly understandable. I
Yes.
I like that as a storyline, to be honest with
Mhm.
you. I don't like that Ted Lasso himself has to go through that, but I
Yeah.
like it as a storyline for this season of the show.
Yeah.
I think as we move into the second episode that we have to talk about today, episode 2, which is I don't want to go to Chelsea, because nobody
Yeah.
wants to go to Chelsea, although people do kind of want to go to Chelsea. Chelsea are a weird club at the moment. Don't
Oh, okay.
they seem to only buy players under the age of 23, put them on 8-year-long contracts, spend hundreds and hundreds of millions, and then not get close to where they want to get to. They've got a weird owner.
So they're like, the Leonardo DiCaprio of football teams?
At the moment, yes, actually. They never used to be. Now, since for about 20, just over 20 years, 23-ish years now, they've been a very, very wealthy club, because they
Okay.
were bought in 2003, I think, by Roman Abramovich, a Russian oligarch who
Mm.
just pumped them full of money. at that time, made them successful. Were rivaling United at the time, a great deal. Really great players and all that kind of stuff. But he was, quote unquote, forced to sell when the Ukraine conflict all started and all this kind of stuff. And obviously, Russian people were not best favoured in the public sphere. So he was kind of, please leave and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They were bought by Todd Bowley, an American, who has pumped them with even more money than I think Abramovich ever did, but done it in a horrifically bizarre way where they now just buy players who almost consistently don't work for them. Just kind of random, oh, somebody wants X player.
Yeah.
We'll get them, but they don't fit with what we want. We'll get them. We have them. He's here now. I've got him. There he is. Make him work. I don't know how to make him work. How much are you paying him? 400 grand a week. Like, why? Why? How much did you pay for him? 90 million. I don't want him. You've got him. It's kind of weird.
Oh my gosh. So like just really bad communication and
I don't know what it is. Like they're okay. They're a top 4, 5, 6-ish side.
Okay. Well, how they play into this
How
episode
they play,
is
I
that
couldn't tell you.
okay. Well, how they play into this episode is that it's Roy's former team that he played on when he became a pro. So he's feeling some type of way about going back there, and so that's kind of what we delve into by the end of the episode. We open though with Trent Crimm.
Crimm.
Yes, he wants to write a book about their previous season and what's been going on because he feels like there's a story there. So he's kind of talked.
Bored. He doesn't have anything
He has nothing else to do, really. Yeah. So he's sat in Rebecca's office with Keeley and Higgins and Rebecca there, and they all seem very enthusiastic. And Ted walks in, and they're like, "Oh, Trent, he wants to write this book about the team and all of this thing, and we're all great about it, but we thought we would leave the deciding factor, to you to decide." And then, as Trent's kind of looking at Ted for an answer, they're all like, "No, say no, say no." But then Ted, like, of course. It's like, of course, yeah, sure, no problem there.
Ted loves Trent Crimm. Ted adores Trent Crimm. For some reason,
yes,
Ted
I think they have this really.
Okay, they've clearly got a very mutual, respectful relationship with each other because Trent wouldn't have done what he did at the end of last season if they hadn't had that. But I just think Ted has latched himself onto Trent Crimm, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this progresses all season, really, as Trent is going
kind of
to be
lurking
frequently around.
Yes, and I want to say he kind of ends up getting incorporated into some Diamond Dog stuff, if I recall, which is
I could believe it. I could 100% believe it.
Yeah, it's because we barely just got Roy into the Diamond Dogs, like once we understood kind of the concept of them.
I think even us, the viewer, have developed our feelings towards Trent Crimm from this snooty kind of awkward, horrible, you've got to watch what you say in front of him, reporter in the early part of season 1.
Yeah.
To who he is now, only like 2 seasons later.
Ted already kind of broke that down pretty quickly when he took him to the Indian restaurant or I think it was the Caribbean restaurant. I can't remember what.
Yeah, he did.
And they had that spicy food. So he already kind of subverted Trent Crimm's expectations of him then, and then it's just kind of built upon this respect they have for each other. So yeah, it'll be fun to see him out of the kind of strict structure of a publication, doing his own thing, now having a better rapport with Ted and the team, which ultimately when he does come on board and it's revealed to the team what he's doing and why he's there, and he's going to be kind of talking to them and picking their brains. Roy's like, no, anybody talks to this guy, I'm going to headbutt you, basically. So now, like, Trent can't do his job because every time he tries to talk to them and everyone, they just kind of turn their heads or ignore him. He's sharing an office with Roy, and Roy is just very much like not having it. It's also revealed to the whole team and everybody that Roy and Keeley broke up. And
Yeah.
so, he sat, people are giving him cards and balloons, because I love that, like, the whole team and, Beard, like, lets out a like a squeak when he hears the news. Like, nobody can believe it. Everyone's like heartbroken. I love that they're as invested in it as we are. So yeah, he's got like a bunch of balloons and like, we're so sorry, like, all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And
It's
as
a little
Trent
much.
is Yes, and as Trent is, like, trying to take a call, like, Roy's just purposely, like, popping balloons. So you feel like there's more
Yes.
going on here than just Roy, like, not wanting Trent to be in their business. You feel like there's
Yeah.
maybe something more personal going on, and you're kind of like, "Why is he, like, going out of his way to, like, antagonize Trent a little bit?" So, ultimately, it is revealed that um well, he's kind of just being an asshole to him the whole time, and so Ted's like, you need to squash this. So I love, like, Ted kind of taking some authority with Roy, because we never really see that. And he
No.
says, your attitude is screwing with the team, you're screwing with the game, and why are you being this way to Trent? Like, it's unnecessary, so you need to go take him in there and fix this. And so, Roy, like, listens, and he's like, okay, okay. And so they have this kind of private moment, and Roy opens up his wallet and pulls out an article where Trent is just roasting him and saying, like, he's not a good player and all of this. And this is when he
Yeah.
first started, when he was only 17 years old.
Yeah.
And and then Trent kind of admits, I was just trying to be impressive and sound cool, and that's why I said those things, um and all of
But
that
this
kind
was
of
so
thing.
long ago, and
Yeah, and
Roy
the
has
fact that
kept
it's
this with him
yes. Exactly. So the fact, and like
all these
both
years.
of them kind of realize, they were both trying to impress and do something big for their careers. And so that's what caused him to kind of say those hurtful things, and that's what caused Roy to take it so personally. So
Yeah.
interesting that, that's why, he's in Chelsea where he started, um and next to the man who wrote this terrible thing about him when he was
Yeah.
just a kid starting out. So
Like,
yeah, he
yes, it clearly affected Roy, but it didn't. He Roy had a great career.
Mhm.
Trent had a great career.
Yeah.
So neither has, affected each other, but maybe this particular thing is something that just has always sat in particular, obviously, Roy's mind,
Yeah. So
because
then,
he's kept this article on him. Maybe as motivation, maybe as sort of Trent Crim, said on my debut I was terrible, so I will vow never to be ever, terrible and always give it everything and
yeah.
be the best possible player I can be, which
Yeah.
is a positive way of
Mhm.
taking it, sure,
Yeah.
but it is an obsessive way of taking it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I like that these two men kind of find this common ground, and Roy is able to get this off his chest and kind of let it go, because at a certain point, we see him rip up the article, and then things are good with him and Trent after that. And
Yeah,
he allows everybody to now talk to Trent freely, as he's kind of trying to write this book. So all of that kind of gets squashed. We do see Jamie, an interesting thing with Jamie, which also subverts our
mm,
expectations. Jamie sees them talking, and the team captain, he notices, and he kind of reveals to him before it's known to everybody, oh, yeah, they broke up, I can tell by the body language. And so we see them kind of, Roy and Keeley kind of talking awkwardly in the hall. He's like handing her a bag, presumably of all her things that she left at his
yeah,
place, maybe. And so he goes up to her, and he's like kind of talking to her, saying hi, and it's a little bit weird. But then, we see her kind of walk away as he is learning this information. And so we see him kind of go in the direction that she is. But then, and so we think he's gonna go follow her and talk to her. But
yeah.
then it's revealed that he went to go see if Roy was okay. So he follows him into like the shoe room, and like it checks on him to make sure he's okay. Because I forgot that that's what happened. I thought he was going after Keeley too. So when it's
Yeah, I
like
mean,
revealed that
he
he ultimately,
tries. He
so when it,
tries now, does Jamie, but
yeah,
Roy obviously doesn't know how to take this at all. Roy thinks Jamie's coming to
ask
kind of
permission to
have a
go
bit of
date
fun
Keeley.
to
Yeah,
yeah,
or
to just have a nudge kind of Barb situation. But Jamie's not about that anymore. Jamie
no,
genuinely wants to comfort Roy and ask if he's fine, and he goes in for a hug, and Roy thinks he's gonna like hit him,
he like
and
goes to attack
it's
him.
very it's very odd, really. It's
Yeah,
funny. It's
yes, because
definitely funny.
yeah, because Jamie kind of plays it like, "Oh my gosh," like old senile people like their paranoid minds and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, it's a very funny scene, but really kind of sweet in the fact that like you think he's gonna go after Keeley, but he goes to check on Roy, and that's where he was really headed. And he genuinely
Yeah.
just wants to make sure he's okay, kind of thing.
The
So
change
yeah,
of Jamie I see, I did think Jamie may be a slightly, from the beginning of the show, I did think he may be slightly a larger part of the whole show than he is. He's
yeah,
definitely a big part of the show,
yeah,
but I wouldn't call him a main cast member.
yeah,
He's a secondary cast member
yeah.
or a
Which he was
secondary
kind of
kind
he
of
was a
role.
maybe a main in season 1, and now he's kind of gone
He
back
was
to
definitely a main in
yeah,
season 1, yeah.
yeah, so he's kind
Um,
of gone back to a second kind of secondary character, but,
but
yeah,
we
just nice to
still
see that
get this
change.
journey with him. We still get this change with him,
Mhm.
and it's so genuinely lovely to see
Yeah,
that he is totally kind of there for everybody else now. He's really very, very unselfish
yeah,
these days, and he must feel better for doing that in himself,
yeah,
Jamie.
mhm, yes,
So
yeah, it's
he's
really nice for
clearly
him.
more of a success on the pitch, even though he's
Yeah,
not a flashy name. He clearly is. He's
yeah,
still, the main man, yeah, as a striker, scores the goals for Richmond. Sure, he's still that. Him,
yeah,
Sam, and Danny mainly.
yeah,
Um, but
he
it's just nice
passes
to
and
see the
yeah.
softening, the slow softening of Jamie Tartt, I think.
Yes, and it's revealed in a great way in this episode. We also get a whole kind of situation with a new player coming in,
Yes, we do.
and
This
the
is very
courting.
interesting.
Yes, the courting of a new player, and you've talked about these kind of stand-ins for real life players,
Yeah.
and I think I'd seen the looming of this character being very much of a real life person when it was
I would
on when
hope
this
so because
aired. Yeah, it was everywhere, but, like, I had no context for who this person was because I don't know anything about
no,
football, but I saw that that was kind of part of the rumblings once this episode, people had seen this episode, so,
yeah.
um,
I know we've
yeah,
said I know we've said before that like Roy is pretty clearly based on Roy Keane.
yeah,
Um, Danny Rojas is pretty clearly based on Javier Hernandez,
yeah,
just in terms of character type
yeah,
and player type and that kind of
mhm,
stuff. But Zava, who we
yeah,
get our big kind of world class international star striker character who everybody's after, everybody wants. He's
yeah,
highly coveted, very kind of flashy person, but quiet, stoic, um, but just this presence of a
yeah,
person, who everybody respects, everybody likes, and everybody wants, in this massive kind of obsessive way.
yeah,
He is the most obvious um, stand-in for a real player the show has had
yeah,
because it's so quite clearly Zlatan Ibrahimovic. It could
okay,
never possibly be anybody
anyone
else.
else? Yeah,
He even speaks like Zlatan
okay,
Ibrahimovic in this quiet sort of because you
short
see him at
word
the end of
answers,
this.
yeah,
Yeah, at the end of this episode, the whole thing with Zava is all these big clubs want him. Zava has announced he will be changing to a different club. that's also something Zlatan Ibrahimovic has done throughout his career.
Yeah.
It hasn't been announced that Zlatan will be leaving. Zlatan himself announces he will be leaving. It's that kind of difference
Okay.
that you
Yeah.
get. Because somehow Zlatan's been able to craft this persona of himself and this ability, because he has always been a great player. I mean, Zlatan's 40 now, he's still
Yeah.
playing for Milan. He played for last season.
Okay.
I think he'll be
No,
playing
he's still
next season
okay.
for Milan as well. But he used to play for Milan years ago. He's played for many clubs, both Milan teams, Juventus, Barcelona, PSG. He's played for United for a
Oh
while.
my
He played for
God.
LA.
Yeah.
All sorts of people, a team started
Yeah.
in Sweden,
Yeah.
played in Holland, all these kind of places. But has always been successful, has always won things, has
Mhm.
always, done what he was signed to do, has
Yeah.
never failed at any club he's ever been at
Yeah,
any stage in his
and that's
career.
what they say about Zava, that, like, yeah, he, leaves, like, teams and trophies in his wake, because as he
Yeah,
bounces team to
it
team,
is.
he gets them trophies, but then he's just kind of on to the next thing, so everybody wants him,
Yeah,
including,
it's
West Ham and
virtually
Rupert, so,
exactly.
yeah.
I don't know why somebody as a stand-in of Zlatan would go to a team like West Ham, because they're not quite big enough as a team.
Yeah, but he says as
Chelsea,
much.
definitely, but
Yes. And that's the kind of thought, like, everyone says he's probably gonna go to Chelsea, that's where he wants to go. He said kind of point blank he wouldn't go play for Rupert, he wouldn't play for West Ham.
yeah,
So, like, Rebecca's at least taking solace in that, but, like, she was like, "No, we're not gonna get him, he's too much drama, we don't need him," kinda thing, and then as soon as she hears that Rupert's interested in him, she's like, "Well, what could it hurt just
yeah.
to take a shot?" kinda thing,
And
and then
this is the thing,
sh
in real world context, this would be absolutely impossible for a team like Richmond to
to
get
get him
a player
like
of
him.
this type. It
Yeah.
would not happen in real world context. It would be as though Sheffield United went and got Zlatan Ibrahimovic, which just is absolutely not
I think
remotely
that would
possible
happen.
at all, ever, in
Yeah.
any sense.
Yes. So
But
Rebecca's, like, against it at first, but then, when she hears that Rupert's kind of courting him, she decides, "Yes, let's do it." And I think Trent
yeah,
calls her on this, and he's like, "Are you really gonna spend all this money and, risk getting, trying to get this player just to get back at your ex?" And she's like, and like everyone, and just like earlier with Ted, everyone's like, say no, you don't want to tell him like that. Like, you're making these like rash decisions out of pettiness." But she's like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing." And he's like, "Okay, I
at
like
least she
that."
owns
Like,
it.
yes, but and
Yeah,
Trent is very impressed. Like, he's like, "Oh, I
yeah.
like that," kind of thing.
Uh,
So,
at least she owns it, and
yeah.
I do like that about Rebecca, is that she isn't afraid to speak her
No,
own mind and her own
mhm.
truth anymore. She
Yeah,
once was, but she really isn't these days.
anymore,
But
yeah,
we see obviously the first game of the season take
yeah,
place. It's a really well fought draw, 1-1 draw that Richmond get at
mhm,
Chelsea. Very difficult place to go to,
yeah,
especially for a team like Richmond. So everybody's like obviously really happy
yeah,
about this. Um, it's a good way, a very good way to start the season. And there's this whole circus around Zava, because Zava is there. It does look like he's going to be signing uh, for Chelsea. Um, Rupert does come into the picture, and maybe we think that he's getting in Zava's ear a little bit.
yeah, and it's like, and it's done in a really great way of Rebecca kind of telling her history with Rupert and how charismatic he is, because she talked
Yeah,
about, like, working at this bar or restaurant or whatever, and Rupert walked in with his then wife and just charmed the pants off of everyone, bought a round for everyone, just like he did, in that moment with her and Ted, when him and Ted had the darts game.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. He comes in, he charms everybody, makes everyone fall in love with him, buys everybody a drink. And then, the next time he comes again without his wife, and he like tries to chat her up, and she's like, no. But then he would just go there every single day and chat her up, and just kind of talk to her until the place closed. And she's just like, why are you even talking to me? And he's like, if this is all I can get of you, I'll take it just to be near you. And she immediately, this went on, she said, for weeks and weeks. And then, when he asked her out that last time, she finally said yes, because he just charmed the pants off of her. And then we pan over and we see him, you know, and she's like, just like that. And we see him kind of charming Zava and like making him laugh and schmoozing with him and
Yeah.
this whole kind of thing. So she knows that look that he's doing when she sees it. So I like her
It's very
kind of,
dangerous.
yeah, I like her kind of, going through her history with Rupert, and being able to recognize when he's kind of playing this game with somebody in terms of trying to charm them. So she knows exactly what he's up to. But then, she says, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to take my chance. So then she kind of busts in on, well, she kind of runs into Rupert, and he's obviously very smug about,
Yes.
oh, yeah, I think we've got Zava kind of thing. Oh, good luck to you. And so that kind of just fuels her fire. So she busts in the bathroom on Zava, who's like using the urinal. And she tells him, are you really going to sign with Rupert? Like, he does not give a crap about you. And why would you join this team that you know is going to win whether you're there or not? Like, you want to be on a team where you know that they could win because you're there, kind of thing.
Mm.
Like, why would you want to
That
waste your
is
time with somebody like him? He does not care about you. He does not want to make a team with you. He just wants to use you, kind of thing. And she kind of calls him out for his attitude and the drama. And then and she says, and you eat far too much asparagus, because she can smell it in his pee, and just walks out. And he just is like, he has no clue what to think. And I think he like even goes and like sniffs. So yeah, she has this great kind of speech she gives him, and he just doesn't know what to think. And then it's kind
see,
of this,
that is such a great line that she uses, though. You want to be on a team where you are the difference, because that
yeah,
is such a Zlatan Ibrahimovic
yeah,
mentality as well. And this can be, I think this is with players like that, of which there's very few that are truly like that and live up to it.
mhm,
Usually the most arrogant kind of I'm better than everybody players they think that, but they're not that. You
yeah,
can name Zlatan, who has lived up to it, Cristiano Ronaldo, who clearly has
mhm,
lived up to it, as two very big examples, who truly never fail in their entire career. Wherever they go, they're always, what you're getting. They deliver,
yeah,
and they are, quote unquote, full of themselves, but in
yeah,
this almost endearing way. And this is the very
yeah,
specific thing, I think, about Zava within this show, who
mhm,
we will obviously, I think, come to know. But this is also the very, very, very specific thing about Zlatan Ibrahimovic as well, is that if you're not familiar with him, he will come across like the most unlikable, disgusting, kind of arrogant, horrible, egotistical minded, horrific person you've ever seen in your entire life.
yeah,
But when you actually listen to him and look at what he delivers for the teams he's played for, look at how he is genuinely a team player as well, you realize that it's all this kind of fun, crafted persona that
okay,
he's made for himself in order to pump himself up, in order
okay,
to give him the, I suppose, aura that allows him to then strut around a football pitch and do whatever he wants.
okay,
It is this psychological kind of thing that he has slowly crafted throughout his entire career, of genuinely getting better and better, genuinely putting all this work in, constantly, 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 and
yeah,
constantly trying to improve. He wouldn't still be playing at 40 and 41 if he wasn't this. He would have retired at 32. You
okay,
know, He
Yeah.
wouldn't. And he keeps going because he cares. He has
Yeah.
so much heart and so much dedication to the teams he's playing for at the time he's playing for them.
Yeah.
He is respected by every single team he's played for, and he's welcome at every single team he's played for, which is
Nice.
such
Okay.
a rare thing
Yeah.
because when he's there, he is giving everything, absolutely everything. And people just know that he'll be there for 2 years, 3 years, maybe, and then
Yeah.
move on. And this is just,
Okay. The
this is
nature
what
of what he
happens.
does.
This is the nature of
Yeah.
him. But
Okay.
he will come in with this, I speak in the third person. Lions are not the same as humans. Zlatan is a god, and this kind of thing. And he's, tattooed up to the
Yeah.
rafters, his own name tattooed on himself and things like this.
Yeah. Like I want to say Keeley said something about like he posted just the words 7.5 million and it got 10
Exactly the
million
kind of
likes.
thing. Yes, exactly the kind of thing Zlatan
Yeah.
Ibrahimovic would do.
Yeah.
100%. And I think when you do realize it, because maybe I didn't realize until he actually played for United. Just I maybe thought he was a little bit more like, yeah, he's a good player. Yeah, he's you know I would enjoy to have him at the team, but this ego is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
But when you see it more up close, you realize it's just a bit of fun that he does kind of for himself.
Okay.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic is a very, very funny person.
Okay.
And I honestly
Interesting.
think he's just having fun in this
Okay.
kind of.
I like
He's
that.
not the same as Cristiano Ronaldo, who I genuinely believe thinks he's as good as he is.
Yeah.
Like Zlatan, I think is a bit more of this act that he's put on, which has helped him be as good as he is.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I like
it's a
that.
different psychology, and
Yeah, like he's kind
Zava
of
is very much that.
having fun with the character and a persona almost kind of thing.
Yeah,
But yeah, so ultimately, I think Chelsea, it's heavily rumored that Chelsea is the team he's going to go with. But we saw Rupert really kind of getting in his ear, and then Rebecca kind of gives her grandstand speech and then just kind of walks out. So she doesn't even wait to get
yeah,
a reaction out of him. And then when he goes to the press conference, he's introduced by like the Chelsea manager, like, hey, our newest member of the team,
yeah,
Zava. And he's like, well, actually, I'm not going to be joining your team. I'm going to be joining Richmond. And there's just
yeah.
like,
Zava doesn't want Chelsea. Zava
yeah,
would go for Richmond, which is
yes. And
again,
so,
I'm gonna keep saying it, a very Zlatan Ibrahimovic blunt statement to make.
okay,
Speaking in the third person,
yeah,
this kind of simple sentence. I like it. I like that we've got a Zlatan standing because I like Zlatan.
okay. Yes. So really interesting to see how he's going to be on the team and his kind of strange dynamic with everyone else on the team and
Yeah,
how that's going to
it's
play.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting. Exciting times, I think, ahead for Richmond,
Yeah.
given that they've now got a truly world-beating striker. But what does this mean for Jamie and Danny?
Yeah, because I mean, even when they were talking about the prospect of him joining, Danny's all excited and Jamie's just like, I don't care, kind of like whatever. So there is kind of a hint there that this might get to him a little bit.
Yeah,
I think kind of just the last little bit was that Keely, feeling a bit overwhelmed. She is doing a photo shoot or like a commercial, and she runs into her friend who's like an actress in the commercial
yes,
and her friend comes up with a really good idea of kind of making the crowd in the video look more full. So she ultimately hires her friend. So we'll see kind of how that goes because I think that ends up
yeah.
being a bit of a thing, her hiring her friend. And then
Okay.
she kind of breaks down a bit of the walls of the kind of the stodgy, snooty CFO lady.
Yes.
So yeah. So she's kind of, maybe getting her workers to open up a little bit and get into her vibe as opposed to being really strictly business. Other than that, I
As
think
she
those were
should
kind of
be.
the yeah, so I think those were kind of the main takeaways from this second episode. But yeah, how are we feeling
Yeah.
about season 3 so far, Morgan?
I mean, we've just got started.
Yeah.
We've barely got going, but I think there's interesting things to come.
Okay.
New character dynamics, which is always
Mhm.
exciting, and hope that rekindling can happen as well. I
Yes.
think is going to be what's going forward in this season for me, and obviously hope that Richmond stay in the Premier League,
Yeah.
which from a football standpoint, we don't want another relegation.
No,
That
we
would be
don't.
silly. I wouldn't
Yes.
think that's how the structure of the show works, to be honest. I think it would
Yeah.
be very unusual for a television show to then just go revert back to where they were at the end of season 1. But it has happened in the past
Mhm.
in different shows,
Yeah.
back and forth all the time, Cobra
Yes.
Kai. But let's not call out names too
No, no,
clean.
no, 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 no. But yes.
Um,
Okay.
but it has happened.
Yeah.
It has happened. But yeah, no, I'm very excited. I cannot wait
Yay.
to continue on with Talking Ted Lasso. Of course, this show alternates every Monday here on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel with Discovering Dawson's Creek on Morgan Hasn't Seen TV. Do subscribe, ding your notification bell on this channel for all the fun stuff we have here. Subscribe to the main podcast feed on all major platforms. It's a Wonderful Podcast. Go and search it. And you can find Morgan Hasn't Seen Parent Show, the movie show, as well as the main show, celebrating old movies every Friday over there. Patreon links, donation links, social media, merch, all the fun stuff has been scrolling down at the bottom of the screen all episode long. It is also in the description down there. Which leaves us, Janine, with only one thing left to do. And please, in your finest Zava/Zlatan Ibrahimovic impression.
Oh my gosh, no. 3, 2, 1.
Bye.
Bye.